Hey there, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a pretty incredible claim that your playlist, the music you listen to, might actually hold a key to slowing down how you age. We're going to explore the really fascinating science that connects music, stress, and your body's own biological clock. All right, let's get into it. So, it all kicks off with headlines just like this one. This one claims that house music, house music, could potentially turn back time by lowering the stress hormone cortisol. It's a really bold statement, and, it got a lot of people talking. So, is there any truth to this? Can listening to music, whether it's Bach or some deep house beats, actually make us biologically younger? To figure that out, we've got to look past the headlines and dive right into the nitty-gritty, the cellular mechanics of how we age.
Okay, so before we can even begin to talk about reversing aging, we really need to understand how our bodies keep time in the first place. And it all happens on a microscopic level, right inside of our cells.
All right, let me introduce you to the telomere. At the very end of every single one of your chromosomes, you've got these tiny little protective caps. The analogy is perfect. They're just like the plastic tips on a shoelace that keep it from fraying. But here's the catch. Every single time one of your cells divides, these telomeres get just a little bit shorter. And that shortening, that's one of the fundamental signs of aging. But don't worry, our bodies have a defense mechanism. It's an enzyme called telomerase. And you can think of it as a little cellular repair crew. Its entire job is to come in and add length back onto the telomeres. It works to counteract that shortening, and in doing so, it effectively slows down that cellular clock. So more telomerase activity, that's a very, very good thing. And that brings us to the villain of our story, cortisol. This is your body's #1 stress hormone. When you're constantly stressed out, your body is just flooded with this stuff. And here's the kicker, research has shown a direct link between high cortisol levels and, you guessed it, that dreaded telomere shortening. This is the real chemical link between feeling stressed and literally aging faster. So if we want to slow down aging, it seems like we need to find ways to boost our telomerase and get a handle on our stress. And this brings us to a super interesting clinical trial that put two really popular relaxation techniques head-to-head. So here's what the researchers did. They took a group of older adults who were having some memory concerns, and they split them into two groups. For 12 weeks, one group practiced the specific, beginner-friendly meditation for just 12 minutes a day. And the other group, they just listened to 12 minutes of relaxing classical music every day. Simple as that. And get this, the results were pretty remarkable, because both groups saw major gains. After 3 months, they had better memory, better cognitive function, they were sleeping better, and they just felt better psychologically. And, most importantly for our story, both groups showed an increase in telomerase activity, that cellular repair crew we were just talking about. But there was a difference. While both methods were clearly helping, the meditation group actually reported greater improvements. They felt less stressed, their mood improved more, and they just reported a higher quality of life overall compared to the music listeners. So even though music helped, it seems meditation had a deeper impact on how they actually felt day to day. And this isn't just a fluke, Other studies have backed this up, finding that even a couple of weeks of listening to classical music can lead to a real, measurable increase in telomere length. So, case closed, right? Music is good for us. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. This is where things get really, really interesting. This next experiment throws a major twist into the mix by asking a totally different question. What happens when you listen to music right before something stressful? Check out this setup. Participants were split into 3 groups. One listened to relaxing music, another listened to the sound of rippling water, and a third group just sat in silence. And right after that, they were all put through what's called the Trier Social Stress Test, which is basically a lab procedure that's famous for being incredibly effective at spiking your stress levels. And the results were completely shocking. I mean, look at this. The group that listened to the relaxing music right before the stress test, they had the highest spike in cortisol. The group that listened to the water had the lowest. This seems to fly in the face of everything we've just seen. Relaxing music actually made their hormonal stress response worse. What is going on? Well, it turns out that hormonal response is only one piece of the puzzle. The way our bodies handle stress is a bit more complex than just one hormone. See, your body has 2 main stress systems. You've got the slow one, the HPA axis, that's the one that pumps out cortisol. And for some reason, the music seemed to prime this system for a bigger reaction. But then you have the fast-acting system, the autonomic system. That's your fight-or-flight response. And when the researchers looked at that system, they found that the music group recovered way faster after the stress was over. So what on earth does this all mean when you put it together? The science is giving us a much more nuanced, a much more interesting picture than those headlines suggest. It's not just a simple case of good or bad. It's really about how and when you use these different tools. Okay, let's break it down on this final scorecard because this really clears things up. If you're looking to reduce your perceived stress, how you feel day to day, meditation seems to have the strongest effect. If you want to blunt your hormonal stress response before a big presentation, listening to nature sounds was the clear winner. But for helping your body physically recover after a stressful event, music was the most effective. And for that long-term goal, protecting your cells from aging, both regular music listening and meditation have a real positive effect.
So the big takeaway here isn't that one of these is a magic bullet. It's that you have an entire toolkit you can use. Maybe that means meditating in the morning, listening to some nature sounds before a big meeting, and then putting on your favorite album to unwind at the end of the day. The real question is, what's going to be on your wellness playlist? Thanks for joining me.